Hey everyone, this is Jason with Parallel Reality here, and just wanted to kind of talk about something that's been on my mind for a little bit, which is why I stopped watching sports. Now, just a little bit of my background, since this is fairly new to me here, and nobody really knows who I am or anything about me, is that at various points in my life, I've basically watched all the major sports. So we have, basketball, football, baseball, hockey, and then I'd include, college football and college basketball in that as well, because those are kind of peripherals to their professional counterparts. And just in the last few years, I've gone from kind of watching everything to nothing at all. But I'm only going to stick with going over why I don't watch the NFL and Major League Baseball anymore, because those are the two big ones. I stopped watching basketball, not for any political reason, just kind of fell out of touch with it. There's no real story there than just time went on, fell out of touch with it. And for hockey, it's just, that's always been a very off and on again thing for me, where it's like either I'm super duper into it or I just don't watch it at all. And that getting rid of hockey kind of became more of a just, I decided that watching all the TV shows that I had season passes for was going to be more important than watching actual hockey games all the time, so I stopped. So that brings us to football and baseball, and again, it's really only going to be the NFL and Major League Baseball. College football, we can drop off the list because that just kind of went the way of the dodo bird after I stopped watching the NFL. So again, focusing on those two things, which were the two major sports that I watched in my life that I probably had the most emotional investment in. Now, again, about my background, I was born and raised and have spent almost all of my life in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. So you can probably understand which teams I'm a fan of. So Cubs, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, and for college, I just chose to cheer for the University of Illinois, the Fighting Illini, because hell, I grew up in the state. So I'm going to go ahead and cheer for the team. Simple as that. Nothing more, not much more of an explanation than that. So again, coming to football and baseball. And I think everybody would kind of admit that in the last few years, there's been this woke infestation of things, and it's permeated every aspect of our culture, from our sports to our entertainment, just to like daily lives, to our jobs, things like that. And starting with my NFL story, the reason I stopped watching, and again, was a Bears fan, I stopped watching, I know everyone's going to kind of be like, well, it was the Kaepernick thing, which is kind of the reason a lot of people stop watching NFL, but my reason doesn't really have much to do with that, other than that was kind of like maybe the inciting incident, like the record scratch moment that made me go kind of like, and started making me think about things. But we know what happened with the Kaepernick situation. Dude started kneeling. I personally, not a fan of that type of behavior. Okay. The media can sit here and say all they want that it's a very patriotic thing to do. It's the most patriotic thing that an American can do, when it's quite literally the opposite of that. It's the least patriotic thing that they can do. And after the Kaepernick thing happened, I just remember kind of being like, God, I hope the Bears don't do this, or a player on the team doesn't do it, because I don't want to stop watching. And I'd already made up my mind that if I saw that behavior, I was going to stop watching. And going into the third week, I want to say it was the 2017 season, why I didn't look this up, and because I could actually tell you when it was, I don't know, but hey, that's just the way we're rolling here. But I think it was, again, the third week of the 2017 season, and the Steelers were in town in Chicago playing at Soldier Field. And I remember I went and picked up a pizza, was on my way back. I remember what stoplight I was at. And I was listening to the radio. The radio announcer for the Bears at that time was Jeff Joniak. And he made a comment about that the Steelers didn't come out of the tunnel for the national anthem. And I just remember turning off the radio and going, yeah, I'm done. That's it. Don't need to watch anymore. And since that moment, I've never watched another NFL game. In fact, I'm like I actively try to avoid the NFL and watching games. You know, even if it's on at like my parents' house, for example, on Thanksgiving when I'm there, I will make a point of not going in the room that has the TV on because I just have zero interest in watching the product. But to go back to the story, so so what I found out after the game, and I think I found this out on Monday, was that there was actually one player for the Steelers, though, that game that came out of the tunnel and stood out on the field, not on the field, but like outside the tunnel for the national anthem. It was the guy, I don't remember his name. It was, I think, Alejandro something, and I remember him being a former Army Ranger. And I just was kind of like, all right, well, that dude has the right idea. That guy did the right thing. And so I felt a little better about that. And then I'm pretty sure not too long after that, there was a quote from Mike Tomlin, who was the head coach of the Steelers. And he said something to the effect of like, well, like someone asked him about the one guy going out of the tunnel and standing out there for the anthem. And Mike Tomlin said something like, well, like we as a team had agreed that we weren't going to do something like that. So like, I don't know why he did. And I kind of felt like, so you're throwing your player under the bus for doing the right thing? Like that just didn't compute in my head. I was just kind of like, I don't get why you're pissed about that, because it seemed like he wasn't very happy. So that added to my frustration with the whole situation and with what was going down. And then I looked up something that I thought was pretty important to the story. Now, some of you may not actually know what Soldier Field is. That's where the Bears play. It's an actual war memorial to the fallen soldiers of World War I. So these guys kneeling in Soldier Field are kneeling inside an actual war memorial for fallen soldiers. And to me, that just compounded the frustration that I felt about the whole situation. So it was a combination of like just the Kaepernick thing kind of started it off, and then it went to this kneeling crap, and then, you know, the coach throwing his player under the bus for doing the right thing, and then realizing too again that they were kneeling inside of an actual war memorial. And I just was like, I can't do this. And I've pretty much vowed never to watch the NFL again, and I don't plan on it. And I'm not sure there's a way they can get me back. Not that I necessarily expect them to, but it's kind of weird going from, you know, watching practically every single Bears game for, God, I don't know, maybe like close to 30 years, and then just not watching it at all. And I don't even know how they're doing right now, to be honest. Probably not very well, because, hey, it's the Bears. But that's my NFL story. So a lot of, you know, just kind of frustration with the way the NFL was handling things, you know, with that whole situation with Kaepernick and whatnot. And, you know, that's that. So as for Major League Baseball, so we know what happened with the NFL, and it started to carry over into other sports. I just remember saying to myself, like, just don't make its way to baseball. Just don't come into baseball. Please don't. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do if I can't watch baseball. And my personal background, just so you know, why I'm so adamant about it not being baseball is the fact that, again, I played baseball in like almost my entire life. Baseball or softball later on after, you know, Little League wasn't an option anymore. So it's always been a part of my life. The earliest hobby I remember having was collecting baseball cards and sorting them and everything. In fact, I still have them all boxed up in a closet somewhere. You know, and just, I've always followed it. I've always been deeply interested in the statistical part of it. Like the sabermetrics movement, I was big into. I thank my dad for really kind of getting me interested in that. And so again, baseball's always been a huge part of my life. I love talking about it. And at one point I kind of wished like that I could get a job just talking about baseball for a living. I'd love doing that. So this again was the one where I was like, it can't happen to baseball. And I remember there was one guy, I want to say he was a catcher for the A's. I don't remember his name, but he kneeled one game, and I think he got like excoriated for it, so it never happened again. And I remember seeing that and just going, all right, that was a hiccup, so maybe we're okay. And I kept watching, and then in 2020, which was the good old COVID season, I had the games on when I'd be working from home, and and so I'm watching Cubs games, of course, and with no fans in the stadium, it was just boring. It was just really, really boring. And also, you can see not only the fact that it was boring, that the announcers and the players were all wearing like the end racism shirts, and it's like, nobody wants racism. Okay, there's no good people out there that want that. Like, of course, people want to end racism. Okay, and regardless if you want to think it, George Floyd wasn't killed, okay, because of racism. Okay, it had literally nothing whatsoever to do with that, and that's like a fact at this point. So it just was like, again, but also it was like, why are these political messages in my entertainment sort of thing? Like, and I'm talking about like my sports. Like, this is my escape. I watch these to get away from the reality of life, as most everybody does. And I don't need these political messages being there. And so that kind of, it pissed me off, but I wasn't like, I'm going to stop watching baseball. It just didn't do that for me. So I kind of kept watching. The season, like I said, was boring, and I just said, like, after the season ended, it was like, whatever. It felt like a fake season to me. I didn't really care. I was like, yeah, I think the Dodgers won the World Series, if I remember correctly. I was like, yeah, whatever, don't care. 2021 season comes around. I remember being like, all right, well, let's just start it all over again. We'll just start from the beginning, watch the games, there's going to be fans in the stands. It'll be cool. So I had spring training games on while I'd be working at home. And of course, we were all working at home at that point. So I had the games on pretty regularly. And opening day, Cubs played. I'm pretty sure it was the Pirates. They lost, because of course they did. And I remember that was on a Thursday, and they were off on the Friday. And I remember on the Friday was when Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, decided he was going to move the All-Star game from the predominantly black city of Atlanta to the overwhelmingly white city of Denver, based on pressure from Stacey Abrams that there was voter suppression in Georgia, or because of the new voting laws that were signed there in Georgia, which anybody will be able to tell you now that has at least the brain power of a retarded amoeba, that those laws have only strengthened the amount of people that have been out. There's literally no voter suppression whatsoever going on in Georgia, no matter what you hear. And he just kind of believed like, oh, hey, some intern told me this happened. This is bad. I need to move the game. And it was like, yeah, I'm out. That was just kind of my attitude towards it, was just, I'm done. I'm out. And I haven't watched baseball since. I keep hearing things because one of my main friend that I communicated with about baseball would give me updates. Like during the summer of 2021, the Cubs traded, Rizzo, Bryant, and Javi. And so, of course, my friend told me that. And I remember telling my dad, because my dad hadn't even really kept up on it. And we were just like, whoa, sort of thing. And I was like, that, so I still hear things. But it was just, keep the politics out of it. And, of course, Rob Manfred isn't going to, apologize for what he did, which he should. I know it'll never happen, and I'm not going to expect it. I'd be stupid to expect that. But, what he did was just based on absolute BS. And the city of Atlanta deserves better than that. And I just kind of was like, I'm not going to support this. I'm just not supporting these companies, or sports that are just trying to shove leftist political messages down your throat, and just expecting you to be like totally fine with it. And it's like, no, we don't need to be totally fine with it. We should just be able to expect our sports to be sports. After that, if you want to talk about that stuff, go ahead and talk about that stuff. But at the sports games themselves, it's like, just let it go for 3 hours. That's it. That's all you need to do. And you can do that. It's not a difficult thing to do. So those are my stories about those two sports, about why I stopped watching them. I've been babbling on for about 15 minutes now, so I think hopefully someone out there will at least be able to sympathize with the way I felt, just putting these thoughts out there. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I would appreciate it very much because I am a new channel just looking to start growing. And I will talk to y'all later. Thanks.